All right, Hayden, I am having a hard time believing that you're actually watching my videos, still answering these problems the way that you do. Whenever we have a sign greater than or less than, and it's reals, which this is reals, it's an open circle and then a line, either one way or the other, right? You've got to remember that there is a difference. It does mean something. When the circle is open, it means the number is not included. That means that it's either greater than or less than. If the circle is filled in, if it's a dot, that means it's either greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. The signs have meaning. The details matter. You've got to pay attention to the sign. This problem right here does not have an equal sign under it. Therefore, it's an open circle. I'm going to mark it wrong every time you fill the circle in when it is not the appropriate symbol. Okay? Let's solve this one. All right, negative absolute value of x minus 9 is greater than negative 11. We got to get x by itself. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. Negative absolute value of x is greater than negative 2. But now we don't want a negative on the outside. So we're going to multiply everything by negative 1. So negative 1 times negative absolute value of x gives us absolute value of x. Negative 1 times greater than gives us less than. Negative 1 times negative 2 gives us a positive 2. Now we have this all by itself. And because it's an absolute value, this number could be a positive or it could be a negative. So we have to solve for both. So we're going to write them both down. If it's positive, the sign remains the same. If it's negative, and I don't know why I wrote negative 2. If it's negative x is less than 2, we do the same thing we did here. We don't want a negative on the x. So we multiply everything by negative 1, which means now we have the opposite of a negative x, the opposite of less than is greater than, and the opposite of positive 2 is negative 2. These are the two things that we graph. X is less than 2, so we circle it, and x is greater than negative 2. So we circle it. If x is greater, it's going to go to the right, but yet it's also less than positive 2. So this is how we would graph that. Open circles. If you got the right numbers and you solved it correctly and you got here and then you gave me a dot on that 2, that's the wrong answer. You went through all of this for nothing if you can't graph it right. You have to leave an open circle. I don't care if it's a horrible looking open circle, if it's a scraggly looking open circle, just make sure it's an open circle, right? If you can't make a circle, do parentheses. Just make it close to looking like an open circle. I know it's hard to draw on these things. Just do your best job. Do not give me a dot. Dot is wrong. It has a whole different meaning. Let's look at the next one. All right, here we have absolute value of x is greater than 0. All right, so nothing's negative. We don't have to change anything. We just have to do the positive and the negative version. So that means that positive x is greater than 0 and negative x is greater than 0. If we change this, then we get positive is less than 0 also. But nothing is equal to 0, right? X is greater than 0. X is also less than 0. So circle the 0 because 0 is not included. There is nothing equal to 0. And then we go to the greater side and the less than side. That's the way you graph that. Okay? Next one. All right, absolute value of x is greater than 2. Same thing. Nothing's negative, so we don't have to change it. And we have x all by itself. So x Could be a positive x is greater than 2 or a negative. I don't want to keep writing 2. Negative x is greater than 2, which we don't want, so we multiply by -1, which gives us a positive x is less than a -2, because everything in here, we're asking for the opposite of everything in here. Opposite of negative is positive. Opposite of greater than is less than. Opposite of positive 2 is -2. So these are the two things we graph. There is no equal sign, so we're going to circle the -2, and we're going to circle the positive 2. Now this is x is greater than the positive 2, so it goes this way. And x is less than the -2, so it goes this way. Dunsies. Right? Next problem. Alrighty, so here we've got absolute value of x. It's positive, it's not negative. It -2 is less than or equal to 0. So now we've got something to work with. All right, absolute value of x is less than 2, or -2 is less than or equal to 0. We're going to get the x by itself. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. Absolute value of x is less than or equal to positive 2. Now we've got to take this and make it either positive or negative. So positive x is less than or equal to 2. Negative x is less than or equal to 2. Again, opposite of that will give us positive x greater than or equal to -2, because we got the opposite of everything in here. The equal, there is no opposite of equal. Equal is equal. Both sides are balanced, so there's no opposite value. So when you have that equal sign, it remains the same. That's why when we multiply both sides of an equation by -1, the equal sign doesn't change because it's balanced. But now we have two values, and we have a positive 2 that could be equal to it, so we're filling that in. X is less than or equal to 2, so it's going to go this way. Well, x is greater than or equal to -2. Find the -2. Because of that little equal sign, we fill it in. And we want those terms that are greater. So that goes to this side. So they're going to meet in the middle. And that's how we would graph that one. Next one. All right. I think this is the last one. I'll double check in a minute. We've got to do all kinds of things to this one, right? So let's rewrite it. Negative absolute value of x plus 5 is greater than 2. No equal sign under here, so this is going to be an open circle, right? We've got to get rid of this 5 and get x by itself. So we subtract 5 from both sides. Negative absolute value of x is greater than -3, because 2 minus 5 is -3. Now we got to get rid of the negative. -1 times this gives us a positive. The opposite of greater than is less than, and the opposite of -3 is positive 3. This is what we have to check the absolute value of now. So the positive is x is less than 3. The negative is negative x is less than 3. So we want to get rid of that negative sign. Opposite of that is positive. Opposite of less than is greater than. And opposite of positive 3 is -3. So x is less than a positive 3, so we circle it and leave it open. X is greater than -3. We circle it and leave it open. And then if x is greater than -3 and less than a positive 3, then there's a line between them in the middle. I think this is the last one. All right, so remember, what's important is if it is greater than, then when you graph it, the circle is open. If it's less than, when you graph that number, the circle is open. If either one of these have the equal sign under them, then you fill that in. All right? You're not just guessing. There is a reason for doing all the things that we do on the graph. Every little mark has a meaning. So you've got to pay attention to the details. You've got to think it through. When we say absolute value of something, that just means the distance from 0. So the absolute value of x is less than 3 means that the distance is going to be less than 3 from 0. So that means we've got less than 3 spaces from 0 this way and less than 3 spaces from 0 this way, which is the way we graphed it. But we have to do this calculation here in order to see it very clearly that this is what we're talking about. Okay, and because we circled the 3, the line doesn't go all the way up to the 3 on either side. The 3 is not included because x is less than 3. Now, it could be 2.99. That's still less than 3. We indicate that with the circle. It's understood if we're circling the integer, it could go right up next to it, but it's not that. It doesn't include it. The only time it includes it is when we say it could be equal to it, and we indicate that by filling in the circle. Okay? Pay attention to the symbol used in the problem. It makes all the difference in the world, and it does matter. It matters what the value is, because that's going to tell you how to graph it. All right. Please watch the video again. Whenever you have a question, the first thing you should do is go to your companion notebook, the one where you write down all the example problems, and you go to that lesson and you check those example problems that you copied down by watching the video, right? Because if you don't copy them down, you're not going to know how to do them. There's no way that you can memorize all this stuff the first time around. You're going to get better at it as you go into Algebra 2. But in order to go into Algebra 2, you've got to master Algebra 1. You can do this, but it takes self-discipline. Write down the problems, do all of it, and seek to understand it. If you don't understand it, watch the video again. If you still don't understand it, there are other resources that you can go to. There's Khan Academy. He explains it differently. That might be what you need. Or message me for help, and I can send you a different resource that might explain it better. But you've got to actually pursue it, because you do need to take Algebra 2 to get all your math credits. All right, I'm going to quit preaching now. Choose to do your best work, because anything else is cheating yourself. All right? I don't want you to sell yourself short. You're a heck of a lot smarter than just asking for the answers. You're better than that. And you can do this. Okay? All right, I'm going to quit preaching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.